This is Spenserian stanzas on a gross miscarriage. Than liberty, what could there be more precious? April 14th, 2025 will be remarked a day when winds capricious in strange concatenation did contrive a people of its freedom to deprive, that had existed in its form ideal, and for 250 years survive, or nearly so, its universal appeal promulged to living hearts where people think and feel. America, or the United States, as she was wont to style herself, endured amid discordant struggles, diverse fates, in raucous conflict, injuries not cured, to which complacent hearts became inured, while others, more inspired, sought to extend the reach of her democracy, immured today because a long malevolent trend was sped by malefactors working for its end. 2 centuries and 1/2, but 1 year, survived the proud republic, if too proud. If you can keep it, words not meant a sneer, but to give warning of the fickle crowd, into whose hands possession was endowed, by men enthralled with constitutional law in prospect, even as the fields were plowed over terrain where Indian man and squaw flourished and eked the white terms rude and raw. The interloping colonist whole cloth created both a lush and barren land in his imagination, ripe for growth, for cultivation, and for order planned on European model. Then set hand to building what he visioned, while he cleared the untamed landscape destined to expand, native inhabitants in mind meld weird, he called invisible, yet savages to be feared. Theirs was compounded by a trail of tears, extending crossed the wide Atlantic Ocean, while lives were sacrificed to buccaneers, soldiers of fortune, zealous in devotion to vast conglomerate wealth in its promotion. Imprimatur officially sanctioned then, bolstered by a unique and curious notion that paragon and highest specimen of humankind indwelt in the white men, whereby a gruesome hierarchy of skin was built upon the backs of the exploited, impressment as deserved through melanin, themselves as living gods almost anointed, megalomaniacs yet disappointed when the impressed refused to share that view, as led the colonist to grow disjointed, deranged in mind, as he in secret knew the implications of what he could not eschew. Upon plantation complex in the South, both men and women took charge of their slaves for labor and for sexual purpose both, committing their own secrets to their graves, occluded in the literature. Yet time saves sufficient evidence and ample hint of sins historic, guilt which nothing waives, despite all euphemisms man can mint, and obfuscations as but barely last a stint. The racial domination of the world grew to be seen as it were destiny manifested, a great banner unfurled, proclaiming all the white man's property, his land, America, from sea to sea, even as through domains both vast and various, incursions spread centrifugally. So he, white colonizer, even deeds nefarious, excused himself, his hold tenacious, precarious. Yet the magnificent words of Jefferson rang with true promise no one could deny, though the attempt was made and undone successively, both hope and infamy commingling and conflicting by and by through war and litigation, bit by bit. Pieces were disassembled. People try to forge a just world on the bed of it. In common aspiration, no one seemed to quit. Until this day, the various different factions strove mightily to keep the Union sound. Yet many sought a history of redactions as only told the story to confound, with gaps for filling, until men felt drowned under a sea of loud cacophonies of meanings lost and truths that did astound when bursting on the ear as panics seize, breath quickens, some get mad while some drop to their knees. Mid the discordant noises of the day, keep us from falling, Heavenly Lord. There grew a faction in the land that strove to slay the better spirit of those words they knew, such words proclaiming on their best review all as created equal. Sown discord, willful, impassioned, devious through and through, strove hard to sunder as though by a sword, justice for all as had been promised by that word. The nation had become a beacon for many who sought to make their own escape from cruel dictatorships or crueler war, as drawn unto the image, taken shape from their ideals reflected. Though a drape may cover yet a rancid underbelly, America's broad promise seemed to gape, scent odoriferous, not ever smelly, of dreams, till men appeared to ransack them pell-mell. Much like the early colonizers, these men surreptitiously concealed their plan beneath a veil of lies, while jokes appease the rudely inattentive. So each man, after indoctrination, soon began to blame imagined troubles on some other, no less a figment than presented an unbaptized child unto a Catholic brother, first sacrament high prized, albeit one's life smother. Soon there arose amongst this stubborn lot a figure diabolical, almost an antichrist in nature, who begot upon his followers, although it cost of spirit, a schematic that engrossed their vital energies in cult-like manner. Even as they the Christian spirit lost, they held his name upon their belligerent banner, a fact not lost upon even the casual scanner. He led them into hatred, shunning love, supremacy while shunned humility, even as founding precepts did remove each one from cogitation. Thereby he inculcated a normal blasphemy, but labeled it a Christian kind of greatness a chimera for all to see, and ginned them up to an extreme irateness, whereby all rectitude they viewed as an ornateness. Time slipping fast, as sands through hourglass slip, their common decency mostly revoked. He and his cronies plant dictatorship, sight all confused, seen well mirrored and smoked, even as Eleutheria is choked, goddess of liberty. Her hopeful reign even subsided while the killers joked, and many fell beside in grief and pain, because they knew she would not likely come again. He raised their ire against the foreigners sojourning in the land most peaceably, though in his slanders he portrayed them worse, as almost maniacs of villainy, and counseled them, his followers, to be complacent with injustices to them, good people worth their hospitality. His followers were swayed by stratagem, with hate encouraged most foreigners to condemn. Yet, mostly centering his vituperative hate on persons classed outside the rubric white, persons as bearing in the aggregate descent from outside Europe. This despite genetics which confirms all people quite congruous in their makeup, race, so-called, a false distinction made so as to smite victims of exploitation, a lie bald, an ignominious shame demanding to be stalled. 300 men he had police detain, claiming them criminals, though they were not. Rushing to judgment, his haste did proclaim itself through wartime measures, though a lot of self-conditioning first prepared the pot in which the wicked stew was evilly brewed, as each who saw became Iscariot, Judas to Jesus Christ, except he hewed unto no party line, refusing to collude. One was a hairdresser, a kindly lad. One bore a small tattoo about autism because he loved his brother. None were bad, of all 300, seen through any prism, or none demonstrably so, but tribalism with hate stopped clear assessment of the facts, legal proceedings squelched, as though a schism set them apart from both norms and compacts, as underwrite society and truth retracts. These men were innocent of proven crime, yet sentenced to a torture prison distant, duration set to last a whole lifetime, even though virtue made itself insistent. For, like some engine foul and furiously pistoned, the prison a machine demanded men, belching its fire. And who could be resistant? Not foreigner nor birthright citizen, equally subject to hell in that devil's den. The autocrat, dictator as he was, worked hard to make his subjects feel afraid. Subjects they were, but not by any laws, but being through their complicity so made, and soon enough, as each to each betrayed, not one was left as could be classed as free, all rights and norms and laws consigned to shade of deepening obscurantism. Thus we observe complete eclipse devour democracy. The torture prison, a concentration camp, as variously described, was built to house vast servile multitudes and bore the stamp of cruelty in each facet, to arouse pity and fury, but few come to browse, for like a black hole no light gets emitted, and word or in or out no God allows, while such as are to that frame ungodly fitted, only with death does any come to be acquitted. The ill intentions of the foul regime, made manifest in taking the 300, consigning them to nightmare sans hope's gleam, were shown by lives domestic that they plundered, as folks confused, insensate, dumbly wondered, wherein had lain the acrimonious fault. The prisoners, all from their loved ones sundered, let us not dwell on them, too difficult. The loves they left behind, sans means to catapult. Turn we attention to another man. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, among the rest, included in the heinous prison plan. Clerical error rudely did divest him of the wife he formerly caressed, the children whom he bounced upon his knee. So to be with the other men oppressed, different in that he had stayed legally, nor fiction could there be to claim this man unfree. His decade of residence was, furthermore, under protection of the court, because enemies he'd left in El Salvador carried their grudges. But alas, the law's rescript availed him nothing, not a pause even to stem his foul, fateful rendition, though innocent, into the jackal's maws. The men were briefly put on exhibition, manhandled, bludgeoned, then whisked off to their perdition. The highest court declared he must be freed. Yet contravening constitutional law, the would-be autocrat refused to heed. Meanwhile, his minions held him in their awe. Obese, stupid, and mean, rapacious, raw in his desire and in his vanity, so never did his heart begin to thaw, as he was born unknowing sympathy, a child of wealth, and in cruelty a prodigy. The prison known as Secot holds renown for its unrivaled cruelty and its boast that never walked man free who was sent down into its bowels. Each man becomes a ghost who enters its domain and outcast post. Built in El Salvador to house the worst, supposedly, it stands stark as a host devoid of mercy. Men therein immersed, even who pay for crimes, have been immensely cursed. As President of the United States, declared the would-be autocrat, I have zero authority behind the gates of Secot prison, even though I gave millions of dollars so that it might pave a smooth transition for these men I sent. Kilmar Abrego Garcia has to brave conditions as he finds them. We assent, acknowledge that he is completely innocent. However, I have no authority to make negotiation for a man held upon foreign soil. He should be free, but there is very little that I can, almost as though prevented by a ban, and I respect the sovereignty of others. Even if he had been American, I could not help him if I had my druthers. There he will stay with other sons of other mothers. Previously, 3 weeks before, he had pressured a sovereign nation to release the brothers Tate, 2 men affirmed as bad, arraigned on charges there for villainies of various sorts, and few can match with these. Sex trafficking of women and of minors, various rapes, sexual indecencies involving force. He paid for the jetliner's transport upon the brothers' release by their confiners. He called the Salvadorian president to hold with him in Washington, D.C., a televised press conference, which they spent reiterating individually respective lack of power to set him free, a man both had colluded in detaining. But though in helplessness they both agree, Their bluster lacked some luster in explaining, despite the stonewall front that they combined maintaining. Donald Trump strolled aside to Stephen Miller, his aide-de-camp and immigrant abhorrer, and asked, "Has the High Court been the fulfiller of sacred duty?" "You are the restorer of greatness in America, your aura set now to be a beacon for all ages," Miller replied, the cruel monster's adorer. Those spoken words subvert the written pages which had told opposite. This infamy presages. Trump strolled back to the side of President Nayib Bukele, Marco Rubio's friend, El Salvadorian ruler, speaking anent of plans ambitious he might not suspend. "I need 5 prisons built, for I intend to send more persons to El Salvador, citizens even, whom I long to send to languish miserably forevermore on your land's soil, as mine to greatness I restore." Hot off the presses, more or less. This part I wrote last night until I passed out. And then this morning I got up and typed it out, gave it a quick review, and then completed it with the notebook. Thank you for stopping by my channel.